She told me not to go into the attic. That's how it starts. You live with someone for nearly a decade, share toothbrushes and tax returns, bury pets together, and yet somehow there's still a sentence that changes everything. It was casual. Just one of those passing remarks Emily made on a Saturday morning as she was heading out to help her friend Hannah pick paint samples, whatever the hell that meant. I was halfway through organizing the garage when she poked her head in, sunglasses already on, and said, "Oh, by the way, don't go in the attic. There's insulation mess from the repair guy, and I don't want you tracking it down." Then she smiled, that too sweet smile that feels like the free sample at a grocery store, harmless, pleasant, and meant to distract you from what you really came in for. I told her sure, whatever, and went back to the mess of cords and old tennis rackets in front of me, but something about how she said it stuck. She wasn't the type to care about dust. She once let an entire casserole spill over in the oven and just baked over it the next day. So why did she suddenly care about insulation? She left in a rush, which was also unlike her. Normally she lingered, checking her makeup in the mirror near the stairs or double-tapping her phone like she was about to post something, but changed her mind. This time she was gone like someone had lit a fire under her. I didn't go to the attic right away. I told myself it didn't matter, that I trusted her, that I wasn't going to be that guy who snoops around like a teenager in a bad sitcom. But by the time I was hauling up an old box of Christmas lights and saw the stepladder folded against the wall, the idea was already too loud in my head to ignore. The ladder creaked louder than I remembered, which made me hesitate, but the attic door opened smoother than I expected. Inside, it was just dim light through a dusty little window, the smell of old cardboard, and the usual clutter, seasonal junk, a few suitcases, boxes marked with our names in thick marker from when we moved in 7 years ago. Nothing looked strange at first. I even chuckled, thinking maybe I really was just paranoid. I shifted a couple of boxes to make space for the new one I brought up, and that's when something slid, just slightly, but enough to catch my eye. Behind a tower of unused IKEA shelves was one of those big plastic storage bins, the type we kept our Halloween decorations in. Only this one didn't have a label, and more importantly, it was sealed with tape. Not packing tape, black electrical tape, wrapped around the lid like someone really didn't want it coming loose. I pulled it out, the plastic scraping against the plywood floor, heart starting to beat a little faster, not because I thought I'd find anything terrible, but because I realized I didn't actually know what I was looking for. Maybe some old journals, maybe a surprise anniversary project she was working on, maybe nothing at all. But when I pulled off the tape and cracked open the lid, what I saw didn't belong to any of those categories. There were photos, hundreds of them, maybe more, tossed in like someone had panicked while packing. Some were loose, some still in their print envelopes from CVS or Walgreens. Some were old, some recent, but they weren't just of us, or the kids, or the family vacation we took to Maine last summer. They were mostly of her, and not the posed, happy Emily that lived in our home. These were different. In some she was dressed in outfits I'd never seen before, tight dresses, lace, things I didn't even know she owned. In others, she was with someone else. Not kissing, not touching, but the look between them was unmistakable. A hand on her back, a laugh with her head tilted back, that kind of intimacy that doesn't need anything physical to scream what it is. My stomach dropped, but I kept digging, like an idiot, like someone who hadn't already found enough. And that's when I found the red envelope. Just one. A single red envelope, tucked between two photo albums like it didn't matter, like it wasn't going to set the whole world on fire. Inside was a letter, handwritten, folded neatly in thirds like it had been carried around before being put away. I recognized her handwriting immediately, loopy, elegant, the kind she only used when she really cared about what she was writing. The top of it just said, "For when you can't take it anymore." There was no name, but there was a date, dated 4 months ago. I didn't open it. I just sat there, in the attic, with that letter in my hand, surrounded by photos of a woman I didn't recognize anymore. When she came home that afternoon, I was already back in the garage, pretending to sort through tools I hadn't touched in a year. She kissed me on the cheek, asked how it went, and I lied. I smiled and said, "Productive. Cleared a bunch of stuff. We'll have room for the bikes again." She smiled back. "See? Told you it was worth doing." I nodded, tossed a wrench into a toolbox, and said, "Oh, by the way, I moved some stuff from the attic. Hope that's okay." She froze for just a second. Not enough to be obvious, but long enough for me to notice. Then she said, "Oh yeah? Anything interesting?" I looked at her, my heart hammering in my chest, and said, "Nothing worth remembering." And that's when I knew for sure she wasn't the woman I married. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me like the world hadn't shifted. My eyes were dry by morning, my thoughts spinning in slow, measured circles. I didn't tell anyone. There was nothing to say, not yet. I needed to know more before I decided what any of it meant. I didn't touch the letter again. I left it exactly where I found it, sealed and tucked away, because I wanted to see how long she would pretend it didn't exist. If she'd go looking for it. If she'd confess. But nothing came. She went about her days like everything was normal, chatting with the kids, reminding me about Ben's dentist appointment and Clara's dance recital. And I nodded, smiled, responded when necessary, and pretended that I wasn't trying to memorize her every move. The next weekend, Emily announced she was going to an all-day team-building seminar with her office and wouldn't be home until after dinner. She said it as she tied her sneakers and threw a water bottle into her gym bag, completely confident, not even glancing my way for a reaction. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her, wondering how many of these fake events I had accepted over the years. Probably too many. I told her I'd take the kids to the park, make it a day out, just us. She smiled, kissed me, and said, "That sounds nice." Then she was gone again. Once she left, I took the kids to my sister's place under the excuse that I had some shopping to do alone. They were happy enough with their cousins, and I needed them away from the house. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I couldn't sit on my hands anymore. I started with the closet, not for clothes or secrets, but because she had a habit of hiding things behind the winter coats, old birthday presents, documents, stuff she didn't want anyone to accidentally come across. But there was nothing there except a box of tax papers and an old pair of boots she never wore anymore. Then I checked the bathroom. It felt stupid at first, like I was searching for something that didn't exist, but when I opened her makeup drawer, something stood out. Tucked under a pile of loose brushes and expired mascara tubes was a zippered pouch. Inside were 2 condoms. We hadn't used condoms in years, not since Clara was born. I stared at them for a long time, not because I didn't understand what they meant, but because I realized she didn't even try that hard to hide them. As if she didn't think I'd ever go looking. As if she believed I would never doubt her. I put everything back exactly as I found it and sat down in the hallway, elbows on my knees, trying to hold myself together. My heart wasn't racing. That was the strange part. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry yet. Just numb. A tired, slow kind of numb, like I was watching someone else's life unravel in front of me. When she came home later that night, I was sitting in the living room, pretending to scroll through my phone. She walked in wearing different shoes than the ones she left in. I noticed right away. The ones she left in were casual, the ones she wore now were heels, clean and spotless despite the rain earlier that afternoon. I looked up from my phone and asked, "How was the seminar?" She smiled, that same too bright smile, and said, "Boring, honestly. Lots of icebreaker games and trust-building exercises. You know, the usual." She dropped her bag by the door and started toward the kitchen. "Did the kids have fun?" "They did," I said, eyes on her, waiting to see if she'd stop, if she'd turn back and realize the weight behind my words. But she didn't. She just opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of wine, and said, "I'm dead tired. Think I'm gonna shower and crash." I waited until I heard the water running upstairs. Then I grabbed her bag and unzipped it slowly. The gym clothes were still in there, untouched, neatly folded. I pulled them out and felt the bag's bottom. My fingers found a small plastic wrapper, another condom. I took it out, looked at it, then dropped it back in, zipped it shut, and placed it right where she left it. The next morning, I cooked breakfast like usual, poured her coffee, helped Clara with her backpack, and said nothing. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're quiet today," and I smiled and told her I didn't sleep well. She nodded, gave me that look of concern she always gave when I had a cold or a bad work week, and walked out the door with no clue that I had started watching her differently. But the final piece came that Friday night. It was nothing she said, nothing I found. It was what I saw. We were invited to a neighborhood dinner party at Greg and Danielle's place. Emily didn't want to go, claimed she had a headache. I told her I'd just pop in for a bit, make an appearance, bring back dessert. She said that sounded perfect. I left at 7:30. At 7:52, I realized I forgot my phone, so I doubled back. The street was quiet, just the hum of sprinklers and porch lights flickering on. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw it. A car I didn't recognize parked 2 houses down, lights off, engine idling. I parked quietly, walked around the side of the house, and looked through the front window. The lights in the living room were dim, the curtains half drawn, but not enough. I saw Emily. And I saw him. Not clearly, not his face, but enough to know. They were close, talking, laughing, the way she used to with me. Then her hand reached for his. I didn't go inside. I didn't knock. I walked back to my car and drove away. The next morning, I didn't wake her up. I let her sleep in while I sat in the kitchen and stared at the wall across from me for almost an hour. I didn't have a speech prepared. I didn't know how I wanted this to go. All I knew was that I couldn't sit in the same house with her and act like nothing happened anymore. By the time she came downstairs, rubbing her eyes and asking if there was coffee left, I had already gone over the night before in my head at least 100 times. She didn't seem nervous. That was the part one couldn't wrap my head around. She looked like someone who had no idea her life was about to change. "Sit down," I said, not looking up from my mug. She stopped in her tracks, probably hearing the edge in my voice. She turned toward me slowly and leaned against the counter like she was waiting for me to say I forgot to pay a bill or that the dishwasher broke again. I looked up at her, and this time I didn't blink. "Tell me about the man you were with last night." Her expression didn't change right away, but her body did. She shifted her weight to the other leg. Her arms folded without thinking, and for the first time in a long time, she looked like someone trying to figure out how much I already knew. She didn't answer. "I came back home around 8. I saw his car. I saw you through the window. I didn't go in, because I wanted to give you a chance to say something yourself. And here you are, pretending nothing happened." Again, Emily swallowed hard, but her voice was steady when she finally spoke. "You shouldn't have come back," she said quietly, not looking at me. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice sharp, not because I wanted to yell, but because I was fighting the urge to walk out before I exploded. "It means," she said, sighing like she was already exhausted by the conversation, "that I didn't plan to hurt you. I was going to end it. I didn't know how, but I was. I swear I was." "Was it just last night?" I asked. "Tell me the truth. I already know, but I want to hear you say it." Her jaw clenched. She turned and leaned on the counter, facing away from me. "It's been going on for a few months." "With who?" She hesitated, then said, "His name is Marcus. He works in the same building. We started talking, and then it just happened." "It just happened?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Did it just happen in our living room last night, too?" "I didn't plan that," she said, turning back to me. "He came over because I told him I needed to end it in person. I didn't expect you to come back." "And what would you have done if I hadn't?" I asked. "Gone to bed next to me like nothing happened?" Again, "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know anymore." I stood up and walked around the kitchen island, standing just a few feet from her now. "Do you love him?" I asked, not because I wanted the answer, but because I needed to hear how far this had gone. She looked at me for the first time with something real in her eyes. Not guilt, not fear, just confusion. "I don't know what I feel," she said. "When I'm with him, I feel alive. But then I come home and see you, and I feel safe. I'm not saying that makes it right. I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you the truth." I stared at her, my chest tight. "You lied to me for months, Emily. You made me think I was imagining things. You smiled in my face and asked me how my day was while planning how to see him behind my back. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, and now her voice was shaking. "I didn't mean to fall apart like this." "You didn't fall apart," I said, leaning in just slightly. "You made choices. You had 1,000 moments where you could have stopped this. You didn't. And now you want me to feel sorry for you." "I don't want you to feel anything," she snapped. "I'm just trying to be honest now. That's all I can do." I laughed again, louder this time, and it echoed through the kitchen. "Now? Now you want to be honest? After you let him into our house, after you've lied to my face for months, now honesty matters to you." She looked down, her eyes wet now. I was scared. I didn't know how to end it without losing everything. "Well, you've managed to lose it anyway," I said, stepping back. "Because you didn't just cheat on me. You made me doubt my own instincts. You made me feel like I was the one going crazy." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No, you're not," I said, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." She stood frozen, arms still crossed. eyes staring at the floor like it would give her the words she didn't have. I walked out of the house without another word, the door clicking behind me louder than it ever had before. I didn't go far after I left the house. I parked 2 streets over in front of an empty lot and sat in the car with the engine running and my hands gripping the wheel harder than I realized. My phone buzzed a few times, her name lighting up the screen, but I didn't pick up. There was nothing left to say that I hadn't already made clear, and I wasn't about to be pulled back in with some rushed apology or another round of excuses. I had never been the kind of person to hold grudges or look for revenge, but as I sat there, staring through the windshield at nothing, I felt something growing inside me that I didn't recognize. It wasn't anger in the loud, dramatic way people expect. It was cold, quiet, and focused. I wasn't going to scream or throw her things out on the lawn. I was going to make her feel something worse than guilt. I was going to take control back. That night, I didn't go home. I slept on the couch at my friend Darren's place. He asked what happened, and I just told him. She crossed a line. He didn't push for details. Darren had been through a divorce of his own 2 years earlier. He gave me his spare blanket, a glass of water, and a simple, "Let me know what you need." I told him I'd be gone by morning. By the next afternoon, I had a plan. It started with the joint account. Emily and I had shared finances from the beginning. Same checking, same savings, same credit cards. She always liked to act like she was the one managing the budget, but she never noticed that I was the one who had set up the accounts and knew where every password lived. I moved half the savings into a new account under my name. Not a cent more than I was legally allowed, just enough to make things even and separate. I left a note in the banking app. Don't worry, I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. It wasn't petty. It was mine. I just took what belonged to me and made sure she wouldn't touch another dime of it without talking to me first. Next was her work. Emily had never introduced me to anyone at her office, not once in the entire time she worked there. That always struck me as odd, but I never questioned it. I started doing some research. A quick scroll through her work LinkedIn connections and company posts gave me everything I needed. Marcus. I found his full name, his position, even his email. He worked in a partner company, and apparently they had been involved in a recent campaign together. A few more clicks, and I had his employer's main contact line and a general inbox. I didn't need to send anything graphic or dramatic. I wasn't going to drag this into some messy scandal. But I typed a short, factual message outlining what had been going on, attached a single photo I had taken through the front window that night. Nothing indecent, just close enough to prove the familiarity, and I sent it anonymously from a new email address I created that morning. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her parents. I had always had a decent relationship with them. Her dad and I weren't close, but we respected each other. Her mom treated me like a second son. I called and asked if I could stop by for a few minutes, just to talk. When I arrived, they invited me in with their usual warmth, but it didn't last long. I sat on their couch, looked them both in the eye, and said it clearly. Emily's been cheating on me. For months. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just thought you deserved to know before she spins her version of it. Her mom covered her mouth, shaking her head. Her dad just stared at the floor. They asked if I was sure. I told them I was. I didn't show them pictures. I didn't give them names. I said only what they needed to hear. I'm not asking you to pick sides, but I won't be silent about what she's done. I left before they could ask me to stay longer. Back at home, I waited. I knew she would eventually come face to face with the fallout. I didn't want to be there when it started, but I left her a note on the dining table where she'd see it first thing. I know everything. The money's split. The truth is out. Don't bother calling. She tried anyway. Text after text, voicemail after voicemail. The tone shifted fast, first defensive, then angry, then panicked. By the next day, she was begging to meet and talk. I ignored all of it. I stayed with Darren for the rest of the week, stopped by the house only once to pick up clothes when she was at work. Everything was quiet. Too quiet, which told me something was coming. The silence broke the next Friday when she showed up at Darren's unannounced. He texted me, asking if I wanted him to send her away. I told him I'd come out and handle it myself. She was standing by her car, arms folded, hair tied up like she hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, she said. I stood on the porch, arms crossed. We talked. No, you talked, she said, stepping closer. I've just been sitting in the aftermath. Can we please just talk like adults? I looked at her. I didn't see my wife anymore. I saw someone who made decisions that tore through our life without thinking about the cost. "You've got 10 minutes, I said, and turned to head back inside. She walked into the house like it was still hers, looking around as if expecting something to be different, as if maybe I'd already stripped it of any memory of her. She stood near the kitchen counter, arms hanging by her sides, not touching anything, just waiting for me to sit down first. I didn't offer her a drink or ask if she wanted to eat. I sat at the dining table, and she followed, lowering herself into the chair slowly like she wasn't sure how to start or if she should speak at all. I wasn't going to make it easier for her. "I didn't expect you to go this far," she said finally, her voice lower than usual, like she didn't trust it. "I figured you'd yell. Maybe leave for a few nights, but not this. This is the result of choices you made," I replied without looking at her. "You made 100 decisions, and each one brought us to this table." "I know what I did," she said, voice getting sharper, like she had been holding in some speech and was about to lose her grip on it. "I'm not going to deny it or pretend it was okay. But you went straight to war." I turned my eyes to her now. "I didn't start this war, Emily. I just ended it on my terms." She looked away, her fingers tapping the edge of the table like she needed something to keep her grounded. "He didn't mean anything, not in the way it looks. It wasn't love. I wasn't trying to destroy our family." "But you did," I said quickly. "You didn't need to love him to destroy it. You just needed to choose him over us, even once, and you did that over and over again." "I felt ignored," she said, finally meeting my stare again. "You've been distant for a long time. I don't even remember the last time you really looked at me or asked me how I was doing." "You stopped being honest," I said. "You shut me out, then turned around and blamed me for not breaking down the door. That's not how marriage works. You don't get to lie and then complain that you felt alone." "I wasn't looking for this," she said, her hands now pressed flat on the table. "I didn't wake up one day and decide to cheat. It just happened slowly." "It didn't happen to you," I said, my voice rising now. "You made it happen. You opened the door. You let him in. You invited him here." She went silent, her face flushed. She looked like she was trying not to cry, but I didn't care. That softness, that instinct to reach out and comfort her, it was gone now. "I'm not here to beg," she said after a long pause. "I just want to know what you want. Do you want a divorce? Do you want me to move out? I'll agree to whatever you decide, but I need to know what happens next." I sat back in the chair, exhaled through my nose, and kept my eyes locked on hers. I don't want to live in the same house with someone I can't trust. And I sure as hell don't want to raise our kids with someone who thinks cheating is something you ease into when things get tough. She didn't argue. She nodded slowly, the kind of nod that says she already expected this but hoped for a different outcome. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're done?" "I don't hate you," I said, not because I forgave her, but because I needed her to know this wasn't about revenge anymore. "But I don't see a way back from this. I've spent weeks feeling like a fool in my own home. I'm tired, and I want peace." "I can leave," she said quietly. "I'll take the guest room at my sister's place for now. I'll only come back to pick up my things. We can figure out the kids' schedule after that." "You should tell them the truth," I said. "Not the details, but enough so they understand that this isn't something we can just gloss over." She looked like I had slapped her. "You really think I'd lie to them about this?" "I think you've already lied to everyone," I answered. "I'm not about to trust your version of honesty now." She pushed back from the table, standing up slowly. Her face was pale now, her posture stiff. "You know, I was wrong about you. I thought maybe underneath all of this, you'd still want to fight for us." "I did fight," I said, standing too. "I fought every day while you were sneaking around behind my back. You just didn't see it." She picked up her bag and walked to the door without saying anything else. As she opened it, she turned and looked back at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "For all of it." I didn't say anything. I just watched her walk out. The house was quieter than I ever remembered. Not just because she was gone, but because something had shifted. There were no footsteps on the stairs, no drawers opening in the bathroom, no sound of her hairdryer in the morning or keys dropping into the bowl by the door. It wasn't peaceful, not yet, but it was still. I thought I'd feel better the moment she left, that the emptiness would bring relief, but all it did was leave space for everything I had been pushing down. The anger had started to fade, but it wasn't replaced with forgiveness or sadness. It was something in between. This dull ache of realizing that the version of life I had trusted, the marriage I built routines around, was gone. I sat in the kitchen 2 nights later, the same spot where we had argued, the same chair I always took at dinner. The kids were staying at their cousin's house for the weekend, and I was alone with my thoughts for the first time in days. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I just sat there and went over everything. Not like a movie in my head, but like a checklist of decisions that brought me to this point. I had tried. I could say that without a hint of doubt. I showed up. I supported her through everything. I kept this family running even when I didn't have the energy, and in the end, none of that mattered. I was loyal, and she was not. It was simple, and it didn't need to be more complicated than that. A week after she left, she texted me asking if we could talk about the logistics. She wanted to sort out what we were doing about the house, the school drop-offs, the holidays coming up. I told her I wasn't ready for a meeting yet, but I'd write up a schedule for the kids and send it to her by the end of the week. She said okay. That was it. No more apologies, no more emotional pleas, just two people adjusting their lives after tearing them apart. I saw the message and didn't feel anything. That was the moment I realized I was on the other side of it. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't need her to explain anything else. The damage was done, and I had already picked up the first pieces of moving on. Eventually, we met at a neutral place, a diner near the school where the kids wouldn't see us if they happened to be around. She came in wearing a gray sweater I used to love and sat across from me like we were negotiating a contract. She had a notebook with her. She wanted to talk about the mortgage, the car titles, the lawyer we might need. I let her talk. I let her run through all the bullet points because I needed her to see that this wasn't a temporary situation. I needed her to understand that we weren't going to drift back together after some time apart. When she finished, I said, "We'll split the house. I'll buy you out, or we sell it and divide the profit. I don't care either way, but I'm staying here until the kids are out of school." She nodded. "That's fine. I can find a place. I already started looking. You'll need to pick days," I said. "We can rotate weeks or split the week depending on your work schedule. I won't block you from seeing them, but don't ever bring him around them." She didn't argue. "That's fair." There was a pause, a long one. She looked at me, and I could tell she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She just nodded again, quietly, like someone finally accepting a sentence that had already been passed. She asked about the holidays, if we could try to be together for the kids' sake during things like Christmas or birthdays. I said, "We can talk about that when we get there. Right now, I just want stability for them. No drama. No confusion." "Right," she said. "I agree." That was the last time we talked about our relationship. From that point on, it was only about the kids or logistics. There were no late-night texts. No attempts to rekindle anything. She didn't try to play the victim anymore, and I didn't waste time trying to make her feel worse. The truth was enough punishment for her. Every time she walked into the house to pick up the kids, she looked uncomfortable, like a guest in a place that used to be hers. I never made her feel unwelcome. I didn't need to. The silence did that on its own. I told the kids the truth in the way they could understand. I didn't blame her directly. I just said, "Your mom and I have grown apart. We made mistakes. Now we're going to live separately, but we both still love you the same." They had questions. I answered the ones I could. They didn't cry much. I think they had sensed it for a while, even if they didn't know how to explain it. Months passed. I kept the house. I repainted the living room. I changed the locks. I got used to making dinner for just 3 instead of 4. I went to work. I took care of what needed to be done. And at some point, I stopped checking her social media, stopped wondering who she was with, stopped caring what story she was telling her friends. I had my own life to rebuild, and I was too tired of living in the ruins of what she left behind. So what's next? Nothing dramatic. No new woman, no major reinvention. Just a man who knows better, who sees things clearer, who doesn't let comfort blind him again. I don't know what she's doing now. I don't ask. I don't wish her harm, but I don't wish her well either. I wish her distance. I wish her silence. And I keep moving, one day at a time.